Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this very special Downtown in Business Leaders Lunch with our Metro Mayor, Steve Rotheram, sponsored by Starship and Sutcliffe, and obviously hosted by the fabulous Crowne Plaza Hotel. Thank you to Mark Tasker and his team for their hospitality this afternoon. Can I ask you to give a warm welcome to Steve Rotheram, please? Right, Steve, not much going on in politics at the moment, so I don't know what we're going to talk about. Let's start with one of the commitments that you made, which I thought, particularly for the business community of this city, was crucially important, which is around foreign direct investment, bringing investors to Liverpool and the City Region, and how we're going to meet your objective of a 25% uplift in that particular ambition. Just tell us your thinking behind that and some of the building blocks that you're putting in place to make that happen.
I think the first thing is, it's not until you see the table and find out where we are in that table, and you realise that the brand that we've got should be doing a lot better than where we're currently positioned. And we are in Everton's position. We're
not even a minute in! And he's taking the piss.
I saw Richie Kenyon outside, so I thought... no, honestly, it's not good enough where we currently are. And then I think it was Berry that we were wrestling with for FDI, and I just thought, well, if we've got such a good brand, what are the impediments to us to turn that interest that we've got globally into investment locally? And so, as you know, I've been out and asked people. I went to Mexico City, which is part of Bloomberg, and we'll probably go on to that. But the other two things were I went to Boston and to New York, and to speak to businesses there who absolutely love us to bits, and where we've really got to be much more focused and much sharper in what we do is to turn that interest into actual pound or dollars, into pound notes of investments into the city region. So I've committed that we'll increase FDI by 25%. That puts us in the top, few in the whole country. But even that, to tell you the truth, if anything, we should be after London, second, because of the brand. I've been out with mayors of other areas of West Yorkshire, so Leeds, if you like, is their brand, and Greater Manchester, which Manchester is the brand. Not even close to being as well known and respected, and in some ways loved as Liverpool. So it is about turning that interest into real, tangible results. When we're being out, there are a number of investments that I know will get over the line.
The international brand is hugely strong, as you've referenced. In fact, I remember doing an event 20 years more over in Brussels, and Tony Wilson, who was obviously Mr. Manchester, said to that group of international investors, well, Manchester might be the brand in the UK, but Liverpool is the international brand, and I think that stays the same today. But one of the things that you've got to do to attract that sort of investment is you've got to get your key ambassador to go and visit these people, to go and talk to these people, start negotiating and sell the story. And for me, Steve, when we went for this Metro Mayor model of governance, one of the key things I saw in your role was the poster boy, if you like, for Liverpool City Region, the person who was going to be able to go and meet mayors, because in other countries, mayors, rightly so, are seen as the key decision maker in their city, in their region. And yet, I'm seeing, okay, probably a minority, but nevertheless, a bloody noisy minority, actually saying, oh, what's Steve Rotheram doing going to him? What do they expect you to do?
Well, we can say this as Scouts, can't we? But it is this Scouts exceptionalism. And people think that because they're not able to go to places like that it's a jolly. Yeah. If they can't do it, then, you must be just going over there enjoying yourself. I'm happy never to go back again, ever. If you see the programme, and literally from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10:30 in the evening, we were on the go. And then you've got to get from wherever you were to wherever you're sleeping in a hotel somewhere. And people will have been to New York. If you're trying to get from here to the Spine, for instance, it's an hour, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we said we'll walk, and they were saying, well, we're not allowing you to walk, obviously, because you're under the auspices of somebody else. So we couldn't even walk through really congested city centres. We had to do what we were told. And that extended the whole day by unnecessarily, I'd say, about 4 or 5 hours. But the meetings that we went to, that's the proof of the pudding, isn't it? If it had just been going round to have a chat, that's one thing. Somebody in this room will know we've been trying, not us, the city and city region, been trying to get into Blackrock for 6 years. And they just have not been able to get in to see somebody like that, because they're talking in hundreds of millions of pounds of investment. And he just said, yeah, come in. Because the mayor was there. Not because it was me, because the mayor was going over. And so we got in to see Blackrock. And I'm not saying that in itself will generate hundreds of millions of pounds worth of investment. The very fact that there's some credibility to us being in other places, that Blackrock could say, yeah, come in and have a talk to us. And one of the things that we're trying to do is, because they want hundreds of millions, we said, would you have a mixed basket? Rather than looking for £100 million schemes everywhere, in the city region, for instance, we could pull some housing and transport and whatever it is together, and then you can look at that to see whether that's investable. And he said no one had ever offered them that before. So that's what they're thinking about, whether that's a possibility of doing. But the other ones, I know that we will sign deals, and one of them is worth many multiples of millions of pounds, and that in itself will open up. It's the catalytic event, consequences of that and effect of that. I know that'll open up some further stuff, because it was in bioscience, and I'm telling you, bioscience in the city region over the next few years, if you're in that sector, good luck to you, because you're going to be making a lot of money. Liverpool will become the epicentre for certain things, and one of them around life sciences and bioscience is a really big one. And I know Natalie's here, and she's there, so she'll tell you, because she's spearheading a lot of the stuff we're doing.
Yeah. Do you feel political pressure when that sort of criticism comes your way?
I think I want to get away from the Toy Town politics and the Toy Town mentality. Nobody says, bloody hell, Sadiq Khan's in wherever he's in. They just don't in London, because it's expected that you go out and you sell that, the city, and it's a great thing to sell. London, it's a brilliant brand. And the same with Manchester. By the way, I was the 4th mayor to go to New York. So Tracy had been out, Sadiq had been out, and Andy had been out. None of them at all. There was no pushback at all. And I went out, and there were people going, oh, how did you get there? Well, I'm a shit swimmer. So, so I went by plane. And then he said, genuinely, the question was, did you go business class or economy? And I said, I went economy. And that sort of closed it down. They would love that I went business class, because they went, business class, you're going business class, and there's people who can't afford to put, and all that sort of stuff. So we've got to get away from this, Frank. In fact, genuinely, there's a voice here of mainly the private sector, and I'm sure that most people here that say that's exactly what we want. We want somebody to go out and generate those leads so that you can follow those up. And I think there's a voice here to go back against that sort of that mentality that unfortunately some still have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the private sector, the business community, have a major role to play in actually creating that alternative narrative that I think, to be fair, the vast majority of the city region will get behind. Let me just talk to you about the Bloomberg meeting then, because again, I think this is an interesting lens into the way we are thought about internationally.
Yeah, so 2017, when I was elected, a fellow called James Anderson, who's Bloomberg's right-hand man, came over to Liverpool, because I'd refused to go, because people know I don't fly. I don't like flying. I don't like the experience of flying. I don't like airports. I don't like getting ripped off. I don't like the baggage getting lost and all the stuff that you... So I hate it. And he came over and said, no, come over, because it was in New York. Come over. Everything's taken care of. And they said, and we'll fly you business class. And I was like, okay, I'll have a go. So went over, and it was an eye-opener because they introduced us to Johns Hopkins, if anyone knows that, one of the best universities in the world for data science. And they were telling us things that other areas had done, which were really helpful for policy making and using assets in that area. And when we teased out what we had here, ours was brilliant, but it was disparate. It was like not joined up. It was all over the place. And that's how LCR Connect came about. I met, while I was over there, met some guy from Chattanooga, and you know the story, and I spoke to him, and he'd taken Chattanooga from America's dirtiest city to America's fastest growing city, and he did it on publicly owned digital connectivity, which is what we've got now. So all them years later, we've got the best digital connectivity in the country, and it's publicly controlled, and that means that things that we can plug into it haven't yet been invented, and that's what we want to do. We want entrepreneurs to think of how we can use this infrastructure that we've built. And then this time when I go back, it was in Mexico City. Again, everything taken care of by Bloomberg, so no cost to the public purse in case anybody's tweeting out about it. It was amazing because I'd been doing this city leadership program for all those 7 years, and I graduated through it. And the only one in the whole of the UK who stuck with it and graduated from Harvard. I mean, I'm a brickie from Kirby, so Harvard University, not bad. I feel really, proud of being able to do that. But it's what it does. So they then recognise you as what's called a champion mayor. And so there's only 35 in the world. There was 500 mayors there. And Liverpool City Region and brand Liverpool, sometimes it's interchangeable. So if I say Liverpool, I mean the brand. But that was all of a sudden right there, and we had people from the UN and all sorts of things who were interested in what's happening here. And as a result of that, we've got 3 bids in, and I know that we've already been successful in one of them, and that comes directly from Bloomberg himself. So he's put £300 million into a pot called Bloomberg Philanthropies, and we've got some money that's definitely coming from that, but possibly it could be well more than £1 million. And what it's for is to look at best practice right the way throughout the world and then deploy that into our city region. So around AI, we've started that with education, as you know, but transport and then health and all sorts of things. So, as I say, in 10 years' time, I think everyone will quite rightly recognise still a brilliant brand and a great visitor economy, but they'll be talking about Liverpool City Region as being an innovation capital.
We talked about the positivity of the international brand, but you and I are both aware that in the UK, not necessarily the case. We did a parliamentary reception a couple of weeks ago, which was very successful, and that's the first step in a number that we're going to take as an organisation as Downtown to sort of start to get the Liverpool message into the place where, let's face it, most investors sit. What are the other sort of things, Steve, that we can begin to do? And I suppose I'd start with the new government, because we've already seen a number of ministers in and around Liverpool. Obviously, the conference has been here for a number of years, coming back again next year. But beyond the politics, what are the other things that you think we need to be doing?
But what an opportunity that is for us as well. Party conference coming back. In the first few months of a government, it's quite sort of nebulous, isn't it? You're trying to nip fog. Where we are now is that it'll be 16 months, won't it, by the time they come back. It'll be settled. And there's a great opportunity for all of us to meet with people who are influencers, to tell them about how good it is, what we're doing here. And we were in Manchester yesterday, and it's what they were doing 30 years ago. Yeah. And we've got a long way to catch up with them. But I'm absolutely certain we can do it. So it's not just about the party politics of this. If Keir Starmer can say that it's country first and politics second, then I can say it's place first and politics second. So for me, it's always been about the city region. We had to work with Boris Johnson. People will sort of forget that, but I was in daily contact with a man who I think is the antithesis of everything that I stand for, but we had to do that because during the pandemic, the most important thing was the Liverpool City Region and the health of the people. So we put politics aside. So we can do that, but if we can't maximise the opportunity of a Labour government, a Labour Metro Mayor, a Labour PCC, 17 out of 17 Labour MPs and 6 local authorities that are all Labour, then forget it, all bets are off, because we're never going to get the chance of doing that ever again in our lives.
In terms of those reputational challenges that we've got, so we've had commissioners at the town hall down the road. You do have still, sadly, that stereotypical, the jokes and all the stuff that we are well versed in terms of the people in this room. What are we doing to push back against some of that? And who are the people, do you think, not just locally, regionally, but nationally, can help in terms of making sure that Liverpool is seen for what it is, which is a fabulously entrepreneurial city, but also one of the best cities that you can potentially invest in at the moment?
We haven't quite got our structures right, have we? When you have a look at other areas and how quickly they can turn an idea, and we were told yesterday, weren't we, that George Osborne said that he got a phone call from Sir Howard Bernstein, who in 1 week turned the idea of something into a proposal that received £60 million, and this was 15 years ago. And you try getting 60 million quid for a project in the Liverpool City Region. So we have to get our act together, and we have to be better. And I think we've travelled such a long way, and you're right about reputational damage, but that's history now, isn't it? You know, I think we've turned that page, and we know that that did damage us temporarily, but it's the more longer term systemic bias against us that I worry about. You know, when people feel that they can still say some of those things and tell some of those gags, like you said about comedians, it does my head in that anybody laughs at a joke about going to Liverpool to visit your hubcaps when cars haven't had hubcaps since the 60s and 70s. I mean, for feck's sake, how long are we going to allow these things to be perpetuated? And what they do when you challenge them, because I always do, I always challenge them, and they go, oh, I thought Scousers had a sense of humour. And you think, wow, is it? So yeah, we have to push back on that. But I do think that a lot of the things now that we're becoming more famous for will change those misperceptions. I would say because of the demographic of those civil servants in Westminster, they're probably the ones who've got more of the stereotype. Yeah. You know, younger kids think that Liverpool's vibrant and exciting, and it's, you know, I'd say that people my age who've probably remembered like what happened in 1980 and all of the issues around that, they're the ones who still have that bias. And we need to better change what their attitudes are towards us. But I think we're getting there.
And on a practical level, you know, the commissioners have gone.
Yeah.
We've got a great relationship between leader of the City Council, Liam Robinson, and yourself. I think he's got a good team around him now. Yeah. All of that matters, Steve, doesn't it? Because if you are an investor from the capital or international investor, the first thing you're looking at is, can I trust these guys with my money? And I think we have now got in place a structure which at least gives people confidence and comfort.
Well, there are investors here. Yeah, lots of you are investors, and lots of you have decided to put significant funds into Liverpool. And recently, I think that becomes more certain, because the markets love certainty, don't they? So we've taken away some of the uncertainty, some of the practices that called into question some of that investment in the first place. That's gone. You know, every single penny that we have goes through something called an assurance framework with national government. It's open to anybody. If anybody wants to see anything, and we have open sessions, scrutiny sessions in the chamber of One Man Island, so people can come along, because I want to get everything out there. I don't want anything to be sort of, because you know what, well, if somebody says, well, you can't see that because of commercial reasons, and we can't do that sometimes, the first thing they go is, what's happening there? You know, we're very suspicious, so I want to get everything possibly that we can out into the open. And the same with Liam. I mean, Liam's been a breath of fresh air, to tell you the truth, in Liverpool City Council. And the good thing is that all of the leaders now, in fact, I'll go a little bit further. This is the best set of local leaders, I think, in Liverpool's recent history. And I'm going back in my time 50 years. I think the way in which the 6 local authorities are working together is an exemplar. And again, going back to, because we were at Sir Howard Bernstein's memorial service yesterday in Manchester, but going back to what they were saying and the way in which Manchester approach things, you
together.
can see it happening here. I mean, we're decades too late for my liking, but at least we're on that journey now.
You've got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on to the practical agenda. We talked about reputation. I suppose we talk about brand a lot in this place, and it is important, but ultimately it's what is the offer. It's about being able to deliver practical investable propositions. And, you know, I think some people said to me last week, head in your hands if you're of a particular political persuasion, as you and I are, in terms of Donald Trump winning the presidency. Nevertheless, I think there's some opportunities there, and I think that this idea that, okay, we can't talk to America for 4 years is nonsense, and we've already cut ourselves off from the European Union, so we can't cut ourselves off from the States. But I think there's genuine opportunities with Trump's election. You might want to get into some of that. But then you've mentioned innovation, science, tech, and we've also got maritime and the port. So, you know, just mention those 3 things: green energy, science, innovation, tech, port. That is basically the agenda that our government is hanging its hat on for industrial growth and its industrial strategy. That's where we've really got to start to focus our attention, isn't it?
The starting point for this is that we haven't had an industrial strategy for 14 years. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. So we were, as a country I'm talking about, we were making it up as we went along. Whereas for 7 years, we put together our local industrial strategy. Now that's going to be called a local growth strategy with the new government. That will be submitted by summer next year. That will detail all of the great things that if you are a government and you want to invest somewhere, why wouldn't you come here? Because the headroom that we got in the Liverpool City Region is greater than Manchester, it's greater than Birmingham, it's much greater than London. Because, in all honesty, we're at a lower baseline. You know, I'll say that in this audience. So that means that you can, with that growth, there's more that people could actually make because our economy is only going one way. All of the indicators, the economic barometer is growth in the Liverpool City Region, fastest growing city region in the country. Doing some wonderful things, moving into some sectors where we know there's going to be exponential growth in the next 5 and 10 years. So yeah, you know, I think that the future genuinely is bright, but the government needs to accelerate what it wants to do, and I believe that you know, the combined authority areas, they're the best way in which the government can get delivery quickly. And so we're fortunate because we're a combined authority. We can optimise some of those opportunities for the people here, but it's going to take partnerships, Frank. It's going to take people in this room. It's going to take because all we do is win pots of money, by the way. That's our job. We win the pots of money, and then we say we want to do this with those pots of money, which is being sanctioned by government. And then hopefully people in this room will say, well, we can do that as part of that pot of money. So you talked about net zero and decarbonisation. We've got the epicentre now. It's in St Helens, and it's called Glass Futures. It's not just about glass, by the way, but it's called Glass Futures because that's about decarbonisation of energy-intensive industries. in the whole country, that's in the Liverpool City Region. And there's lots of things that we are doing. You know, I want to turn us into Britain's renewable energy coast. There's lots of stuff happening there. People will, I think, be tired by now about announcements on the tidal project, but it's another 4 years before we get a full business case, which is 5,000 pages thick. We're going through public consultation. We've done the scoping exercise with the planning inspectorate. So all of those bits are all lining up, as well as the great stuff that we're already doing. But that's why FDI becomes such an important part of the mix. We need government funding and we need FDI. And look, well, I'll say it, I think Trump is an absolute maniac. I think he's made the world a much more dangerous place for everybody. But just the same as I voted Remain, you have to respect those people who didn't believe in that at the time, although lots of them now do, and we're out of the EU. Well, what are the opportunities for us? Because you can't impose your value system on everybody else. You have to say, are the things that we can do now that we couldn't do beforehand? And as they become more apparent, then we need to be at the forefront of that, because we are a Western-facing port. So if the EU is on the wrong side now, and we're on the right side, what does it mean to maritime? What does it mean to investment? What does it mean to trade? That's why we're having these things and going out there. America is probably going to be one of those places where they'll think, you know, is my future here? And if it's not, then we need to be getting in there and saying, well, look, we're just across the pond, and we can do some of those things. And we've got digital connectivity that goes directly to America that nowhere else in our country does. You know, it comes ashore. I didn't realise. I went to Boston, and it was a mile down the coast that it comes ashore in Boston, from Southport. And so I said to like all the sciencey people, you know, because we've got an advantage on the latent delay of that connectivity is, I think it's 8 milliseconds. And I said, does that mean anything to you? And they were like, wow. So it's about what are the assets that we've got and using them in a completely different way, given that we might not have chosen some of those things to happen, or I'd prefer them not to have happened, but that's the reality that we face.
And I was saying earlier, the deals that you do with the states, you know, states have far more power in America than simply, you know, it's not all going to go through Donald Trump. In fact, most of this doesn't. But the reason I'm talking about America a lot, it's not just because you've been there, but we've got the greatest export that the UK have produced over the past 25, 30 years is the Premier League. We've got an American owner over at Anfield. We're likely to have American owners at the greatest club on the planet, who've got the greatest stadium in Europe, about to be finished within the next few weeks. But the serious point here, Steve, is that we talk sometimes about overstating football and the Beatles and all that sort of thing. But when you've got that Premier League brand and you've got two clubs in this city and you've got two American owners, again, you were talking earlier about Labour Council, Labour Mayor, Labour Government, two American owners, Premier League football.
Possibly Tranmere as well.
And
possibly three American owners.
So come on. You know, we've got to take advantage of those relationships. And I know you already haven't thought about what you can do beyond just getting the ball out and having a chat about football.
But if we put the football away and think about it as a business, because both of those two things, the Premier League teams are businesses, wow, what an asset. Leeds would bite our hands off to have one of those in their area because they haven't got Premier League football. So when they go away, it's not the same thing. The Premier League opens doors for you abroad, and to have two Premier League football teams, and you know, genuinely, you know what I think of what's happening with Everton and the possibilities that a new stadium brings, and the regeneration of that whole area, not just in Liverpool. Don't forget, it's sort of North Liverpool, South Sefton, but that whole area as a corridor, because of Everton being the anchor there. I'd love to come back in 20 years and where we've seen all of that redevelopment of Greater Manchester, you know, Spinningfields and all.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be as good, if not better, than anything that you've seen in regard to a catalyst for regeneration of Everton Stadium. It's a great news for us, and of course, being a former MP for Liverpool Walton, they're not just leaving and leaving the Al Stadium behind. There are plans there for the legacy of what's going to happen there, so you get 2 bites of the cherry as well. So I think that's really important to us. But we need to get away from, you know, why would we hide our light under a bushel about Everton and Liverpool or the Beatles?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're the door openers.
Yeah.
So if you can, as we did, if you can talk to somebody about something that they're interested in, that forms the relationship. Hopefully then that relationship turns into trust, and trust turns into investment. So that's the first part of what we want to do. But I talked to, first of all, you find out. So that fella, for instance, at BlackRock, Eddie, he was really interested in the Beatles. So it's dead easy. You start talking about the Beatles, don't you? Because he doesn't know you. And all of a sudden you're talking about, and you go, oh, how about that album? And that opens the door, and then you start talking about packages of support.
Did you tell him you're on the drums for the Blue Album?
Yeah.
Ringo was off sick that day.
It's
I jumped on.
It's nice to have a conversation that doesn't start with when you're getting your hair cut, Frank. Yeah. So, but honestly, that we've got so many things, and of course, in those sort of East Coast states, the people who settled there, a lot of them came from Ireland, and everyone who came through Ireland, from Ireland, came through Liverpool. And so there's this emotional connection as well, attachment to Liverpool, because their great-grandparents went through Liverpool. In a fantastic book, if Boris Johnson can do it, I can fucking do it. Got taken off. But look, in that, me and Andy went to one of these posh things over in America in 2017, and he walks in, and this old fella had cut his finger, so I just seen a bit of blood, and I went, oh, and realised who it was once I'd got over and got a band-aid, as they say over there, and he comes round the corner, and it was Henry Kissinger, and I'm having a conversation with Henry Kissinger about Liverpool, and he came through Liverpool in the war, and there's loads of people who've got memories of Liverpool, and there's a massive diaspora of people who love Liverpool, who've been through Liverpool, who are from Liverpool, who have businesses in Liverpool, who went to university in Liverpool. The Irish do it brilliantly. They just get people in a room who've got this, and they all have a bit of a night out and a few Guinness and all that. We had one in the Museum of New York City, and it was people who were associated with the universities and all that sort of stuff. And we filled the room, and it was on a mad night, a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, and people came out just to talk about Liverpool. Now, I think we could smash that. I think we can do, not quite Carnegie all, but we can do something of enormity over there. And what they do over there is they're used to philanthropic giving. They go out and they give money to. So if we had something that was a big scheme here that we could go over there and raise money for, that still gets slacked off. But do you know what I mean? But that's the sort of thing we can do now.
Yeah, brilliant. Let's talk about some practical projects, some ongoing, some that you'll be thinking about how we can take full advantage of new investment that's coming potentially from the government. So, film studios.
Yeah.
Where's that up to?
Do you want to take it on? Really good. I don't know whether did Rob come in? Was he going out, or he wasn't before anyway? I'm hoping, because Freakin do film as well.
Yes.
So I'm really interested in that as an angle to talk to them, because there are obvious synergies there with what's happening with Littlewoods. And if people think it's just the old Littlewoods building and then it's going to be redeveloped, they're missing the point. This could be something that is game-changing for the whole city region, because it's not just about the most filmed city, because brilliant, we're all proud of that. And you see films, don't you? And I can't watch the film because I'm going, that's Dale Street, or that's the Liver buildings, or you do it all the time. And it's fantastic that we can substitute for so many of those different places throughout the world. But it's the back office stuff that I want. I want the post-production. With the digital connectivity, there's nothing stopping us from, you can edit and all that. You can do all of those works, which means that we can fit into what we do with our great colleges, because we've got some brilliant colleges and some really talented people. It means that we can fit in with what our universities are doing. And I think if James is here, hopefully he can tell me whether I can say this, but there's something called the London Screen Academy. We've been speaking to someone who's a Scouser, who, I might as well tell you now, so, but he runs Hat-Trick Productions, as you know, yeah, an Evertonian.
Good blue.
Yeah, good blue. Yeah. And he's interested in doing a Liverpool Screen Academy. So you start to see then, don't you, how this can become a cluster of arts and technology and all that sort of stuff, and you build that out. And then some of the stuff that we want to do here, and I have got to be careful on this, because what we've said is that we're speaking to Universal, and that is about an immersive experience, an immersive musical experience based around something and bands from Liverpool. That's I think.
Wonder who that could be.
Yeah, I wonder who that could be. But we're not allowed to talk about ABBA Voyage, so I won't. But imagine something that's happened somewhere else in like London, and then and what we could do here with the scale of something like that. I just think that people would flood into Liverpool, and our visitor economy is doing brilliantly. 6.25 billion. We were hoping to break 5 billion, and we got to 6.25 billion pounds worth of economic benefit to the city region in the last 12 months that we've posted. And we can go even further than that. Now, if we got this, I think all better off. I just think this is probably the biggest thing that will ever happen in the visitor economy in Liverpool, and it'll go on forever. No, people don't decide to go to Stratford because all it is Shakespeare. They go there because of Shakespeare, and they're still doing it 400 years later. So I think forever there'll be something around music from the Liverpool City region.
Connectivity has been one of the things that has exercised regional mayors. You and Andy Byrne have been talking about it since you were elected. HS2's been, it's gone, it might be back again. But again, I think most people in this room would say the connectivity across the north has got to be a priority. It's absolutely woeful. Not just to Leeds and Newcastle, almost forget that, but just getting from here to Manchester is a pain. What's the latest on that, Steve?
Good news. Going back to the point that you're making, we obsessed, don't we, with north-south connectivity and HS2, and that was really important to Liverpool City because part of that infrastructure was going to be used when you get down to sort of the Delta before Crewe, where it bends round to Manchester. That was going to be, that bit there going to Birmingham was going to be part of our spur that comes to Liverpool, and that was going to allow us then to do west-east, but north-south as well. And when they took that bit out, we're still going to be able to go that way, but to go that way, you go and then you hit congestion, and we can't get more capacity, we can't get more freight onto rail and all. So that's why I had a falling out with the lovely Grant Shapps. We went head to head, and he was most upset because I said we were promised grand designs and had given us a 60-minute makeover. It was because it was terrible, the option that they were giving us, which was to come from Liverpool and then to go onto the old Fiddler's Ferry, power station, coal lines, and then back onto, and I just said, no, we're not having it. If you remember, I said, I literally will die in a ditch for this one. And that was called option 5.1. So the money that was allocated to Liverpool, so there's Liverpool, and there's the bend, if you like, where the spare was going to go. So that was worth 5 billion. So they've said we can have that. And then the bit then that was going up from Birmingham to Manchester, that bit was 12 billion. And they've said you can have that. So we've got 17 billion that myself and Andy now have been given the responsibility through something called the Liverpool to Manchester Rail Board. And we co-chair that. But we've got a responsibility of designing a new route that goes not using old infrastructure, but brand new, twin track between Liverpool and Manchester going through Warrington. And the pressure's on because 200 years ago, this year, was the first meeting of the first Liverpool to Manchester Rail Board. And in 5 years, they had the Rainhill trials. And the year after, in 1830, they ran the first passenger rail system in the world between Liverpool and Manchester. So that gives us 5.5 years to get everything planned and to build it. So no pressure there if we wanted to do it in them timescales. But we'll definitely do it in the next decade. The thing is that the government had shunted ours to 2043. You know, like 2043, it takes you as long today to get from Liverpool to Newcastle as it did when Stephenson's rocket first ran.
Isn't it ridiculous? Yeah, it is
So,
ridiculous.
and we said before, what's holding us back? It's things like this.
Yeah.
It's things like infrastructure that's holding Liverpool City Region back. I spoke to the airport a few weeks ago about how we can almost use Liverpool as a bridge. You know, if you went to, I went from Heathrow to America, no, to Mexico the night, but some others flew from other areas to go to America. We can't get directly from Liverpool Airport to America, but you can go through Dublin. And if you go through Dublin, you already go through customs. So when you get to America, you haven't got to go through all that nonsense. Yeah. I just said, well, make a virtue of that. You know, okay, we haven't got direct flights, but you could go to Dublin. Well, why don't you go to Dublin, stay a night and have a drink and enjoy yourself and then get to America the next day? Yeah. And vice versa, when people are coming from America, why don't we attract them into Dublin, where you can do the same thing and then come to Liverpool, because you can fly to Liverpool and then get them into the heart of Liverpool. But it's not always about being jealous or overly competitive. We need to find better ways of doing the things that we can with what we've currently got. I just think connectivity is probably the big bit in all of the armoury in regard to infrastructure that is holding us back.
Last question from me, then I'm going to go to the audience. I know you've been passionate since you were elected about giving opportunities to young people, working with our educational establishments, particularly FE, but increasing the universities. We were talking earlier about how important the universities are. And in Mark Power and Tim, I think we've got two
brilliant
personalities here who are going to really be able to drive that agenda forward. But apprenticeships, Steve, again, I know passionate from your perspective because you came through that route yourself. And again, a commitment from the government now to start to take that particular route into work more seriously. What are the sort of things that we can expect to see here?
So I've put in to be a pilot for a new approach. We've got something called Pathways, and as university becomes ever more expensive, certainly for working class kids, you're leaving with 50 grand now. You can do a degree level apprenticeship when you're employed, so you're getting paid, and there's no cost to it. So I think it's becoming a genuine alternative. Although university for some people is absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm not decrying that. You know, beforehand when we left school. Did you go to university when you were a kid?
No.
Wasn't even on my agenda. I mean, there's no chance of
Too many kids by the time I was 16.
But yeah, some of which you don't know up to. But there was no chance of people from working class backgrounds. And the new Labour government then, Blair, was absolutely right, wasn't it? That he wanted to give the opportunity for as many people to go to university as possible. And I keep on saying, we need to applaud that. What happened, though, is they took their eye off the ball with the other 50% who didn't want to go to university. And we almost downgraded the apprenticeship route, and MVQs became problematic. So we've said now we'll have a mechanism by which people can choose a different route, and you can switch over from one to the other if that's what you want to do. But the whole sort of cost of it needs to be a holistic approach to education or to skills. And I was in City of Liverpool College yesterday, I think it was, where they're doing some of this. And in a chance meeting, I was invited to Valiant in Derby, and they've got a brilliant programme there. And they just said, we can't get enough people. I said, well, we've got people. We've got people with talent, and what we haven't got is opportunity. So if you've got opportunity, I can get you the people. And he said, how do we do that? So I went to see, yesterday, Elaine Bowker, and they've set up a brand new workshop, and it's for heat exchangers and heat pumps and all of that side of things. It's set up there. They've invested in all the materials. The college have put the space aside, and we've got the young people. Those young people will walk into really good degree level jobs. That's the sort of thing that we can do. Governments can't do that for you, but we can do it locally, and we've got lots and lots of talented people. If we can give them, that step on the first rung, they'll be away. What's often unfortunate is that they don't get there, or the costs of potentially getting one of those jobs are too high for them. So traveling's too expensive. And as you probably know, the rest of the country is going to go from £2 to £3 bus fares, but not here. We're going to keep ours down, because that's an element for most people that could be the difference between them taking up an apprenticeship and not. And we have half-price travel for our apprenticeships right the way across the city region. So we need to ensure that the conditions are right if these people do want to invest, if we do want to have more people staying here, if we do want to retain graduates, if we do want people to go from MVQ level 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, we need to provide those sort of pathways for them. And I was with Bridget yesterday, I think it was, and I said to the government, we stand ready, you tell us what you want, and we'll adopt or adapt what we're doing to whatever it is the government wants to buy from us, rather than what we used to do. And you know this, Frank, we used to go to, didn't we? We've got one of these, and the government would say, well, I'm not buying one of those. And we'd go, see, we never get anything from it. And we're turning that round now and going, well, what is that you're selling? Okay, you want one of them, look what we've got. It fits into, that's the new approach, I think.
It's that flexibility, isn't it?
Have to be.
Absolutely. Right, I'm going to go to the audience for some questions. And Dave Dargan, as I said, Starship sponsors today. Where is Dave? Where is he? There he is, over there. Dave.
I'll try and get up.
Really?
Cheers. Yeah, I suppose my question's on brand Liverpool, and I think we've talked a couple of times about this, is that all Liverpool first that we've got, first underground passenger railway, first glass building, first midwife, first grammar school for girls, a place of first. So how can we domestically sell the city a bit better so that government sees as a place where we can do trailblazers and we help them shape policy rather than sort of being done down south or it going up down the 62 to Manchester?
Well, one of those areas is modern methods of construction, surprisingly. And at Labour Party conference, if anyone went, there was a house that was plonked outside the arena. And I said, Dave, we know what we should have done there? We should have put ruby slippers underneath it. Bit like the Wizard of Oz, because people were just walking past it as if that was a house that was there. And we needed them to go, what the hell is a house doing outside? But the amount of people who came in and saw, it was built in 2 or 3 days, was it?
Yeah,
A couple of days. And for government, they're continually talking about accelerating delivery. Quite frankly, although my trade is probably the best in the construction industry, we haven't got enough bricklayers. I could earn more as a brickie now than I can as a Metro Mayor. That's genuine, and it wouldn't kill me by doing that.
You could go business class then if you went.
That's right, yeah. But there's loads of things that they're interested in, that the government are interested in, but we need to package it, don't we? We need to sell it to them. So MMC, for instance, and what we can do on housing, because our approach is not just about let's follow somewhere else. You're right, we're pioneers. So I want to be at the vanguard of what's happening on MMC. So we said to Starship and others who do modern methods of construction, modular build, you need to come together, form some sort of loose affiliation, a partnership, a consortium. And we've got that in place. But even if we stepped up, we're saying, what other things would we need? So we'd need the machinery that would allow these people to build more. So we've got the people, is it Smiths?
Yeah, 3D Smith.
Yeah, we've got Smiths who build the machinery. So we've got them in the chain. And then we've got the colleges who can provide the people, because we've got the people. And then what we're saying, again, to national governments, is if you give us some skilled capital funding, we'll either build some new stuff or we'll convert some other stuff so that you can start to get people trained. But you're talking about potentially training people yourselves over in the Wirral. And so all of them things are there. And we're just waiting now for the government to announce. They've said in the budget the quantums, but we need to know what part of that huge sum of money we're going to get. And then we can start kick things off. The other thing that we need, in all honesty, is our councils to have a quicker, should we put it, a quicker planning process.
Yeah. And the government might help with that in terms
they
of
are,
some of the changes.
Yeah, they are going to help.
Yeah, yeah. Is Alex Cousins still in the room?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Alex, you've always got something to say, so go on, say it. Alex is from Catapult. On a serious note, Catapult have done a fabulous job in terms of some of the introductions they've made, I know to the Mayor's office, also to us, on this international agenda, but also I know you're passionate about maritime and the port, Alex, so I thought you may want to say something on that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're not a one-trick pony, but when we go into a region, we look at where can we add more value, and you're absolutely miles ahead on science and stuff like that. So the area where we thought we could add value was maritime, because it is in your innovation strategy. So really pleased, we're doing a lot around the maritime and the clean energies and the green shipping corridors. So hopefully we're still working on that, and hopefully get something from Boston with a bit of luck.
Yeah.
So that's great. And then the other thing is, I've just got something through now. So going back about having ambassadors, I've got a national remit, and we probably all have. So we should be looking, especially not globally, but nationally, about how we can put ourselves across. So even just now, someone just said the US are coming over for transport to do some transport thing in January. And I'm thinking, I need to tell them. So I'll get you in touch with that as well. So, and then next week we're at the AI Summit, and that is really important. International AI Summit, and our chief execs coming up to speak about that, because that is the future. So we're here to help, and good luck with everything you do.
Thanks, Alex. I think AI is already completely sold out. I think it is. But and I don't know whether anyone's desperate to go, but it doesn't matter what sector you're in. This is going to have an influence on everything that you do in the future. So, again, through one of those Bloomberg things, I bumped into some people from Johns Hopkins talking about AI, and we then came over, and they've got something called responsible AI, so I didn't want it to be the same as them, so we're calling ours AI for good. And we looked at education, and it's already started now. So the fortunate thing is it's not about we'd like to do things in the future. Our schools in the Liverpool City Region are part of the biggest pilot in the UK for AI in education. And I met some people through TBI called Century. And Century provide a education tool to Eton and Harrow, and now all the schools in the city region. So they've all had the opportunity to sign up for a pilot free in the city region, and they're going to be using the same thing as fee-paying kids, and we're going to see how this works during the pilot, and then if, as I suspect, it's going to be successful, then I've secured some money for either a 1 or a 2-year pilot for all the schools across the city region who want to sign up. It's an opt-in, you don't have to do it. It's not about replacing teachers, just in case anyone's thinking along those lines. It's about freeing up time for teachers to do the thing that they went into the profession to do, which is to teach. And it takes away some of the, you know, the marking and some of the statistical stuff that they have to do to report in and all of that. And they can get on and do some lesson planning and helping individual kids who are struggling. But this is happening today. You know, it's actually it's kicked off. Probably go to December and then we'll assess it then. But if it works as why wouldn't it work here if it's working in posh schools? So if it does work here, I've secured significant funding, and we'll get 1 year, but possibly 2 years. If we up our educational standards across the board, that will help colleges, because our colleges, the first thing they have to do is to take kids, probably like me and you, who left school and went not interested in doing anything else in education. They're having to take them when they wanted to leave school because classrooms bored them, to put them back into classrooms to do English and maths. And then the English and maths takes a lot of the credits that kid has for skills, and then they have to then go through the apprenticeship. If we could take some of that away,
starting again, isn't it?
Yeah, take all that, so that they're coming out with the prerequisite qualifications to do apprenticeships. You're missing all of that bit out. I think about the saving, not just in pounds, because of course we have to. It's all about value for money because it's public money. But think about for the individual, for that kid, who can then start on a career path straight away. So that's what I'm hoping that it does.
Fantastic. And is Colin still with us? Colin Sinclair? Yeah.
Well, I didn't actually have a question ready, Frank, so thank you.
No such thing as a free lunch?
I'm going to go back to the point about transport. You know, we were at the Bridgewater Hall yesterday, an incredibly moving memorial for Sir Howard. And one of the speakers talked about the tram network. I think it's 68, 69 miles of tram network. And you know, when you look back to what triggered the exponential growth of the city, clearly that transport network had a key part. And, you know, you talked about some fantastic innovation and some really, really important programs that you're involved in, and obviously devolution, buses, going to be really important, and the electric and hydrogen buses. But you've also talked in the past about gliders, trackless trams, a form of tram that doesn't require the heavy infrastructure. Is that something you could expand on a little bit more? Because if we're going to be the leading city for culture and innovation, and you know, our region is going to be known for that as a brand going forward, how can we innovate in that kind of space?
It's a great question.
That one up, Frank. Is that
Well,
It's not bad, that, Colin. Well done.
It's a great question because
You'll go far.
Because Col, you were in Manchester when we were first. We were going to have something called Merseytram. That was before Manchester. And if anyone can point to anything other than we cleared some sites because they were going to be the depots.
Cut track down it. Water Street.
It breaks my heart, honestly. And that was because, I said before, about learning lessons. Yeah. Manchester was saying they had a 30-year plan. Yeah. We didn't even have a 30-month plan. What we did is, it was going to go, if people don't know, Route 1 was going to go to Kirby. That's Knowsley Council. Liverpool Council didn't want it to go to Kirby. They wanted it to go to the airport. That was Route 2. There's a big falling out. We'd bought, not we, you know, as a city region, had bought, or Merseyside at the time, had bought tracks and spent a lot of money on them. And they lay in storage for 2 decades and nothing ever happened. And that's what I mean about having that single vision where everybody buys into it, and people putting aside the sort of the parochial and Mickey Mouse way of thinking. We need to be thinking globally. We're a big global player. That's the way we need to do it. So, would I love a tram? I would bite your hands off for the tram. If somebody can find me £2 billion, I promise you we'll get it delivered. We just haven't got that flexibilities of on top of everything else we want to do, because we're spending 1.6 billion on transport. We haven't got another 2 billion spare for a tram system. But thinking long term, if we talked about Bramley Moor before, if we need to connect to Bramley Moor, the transport links at the moment are rubbish, aren't they? I mean, I don't know how you get through public transport to Bramley Moor. It'd be very hard. Our trains go to Sandhills. Then there's a bit of a walk from Sandhills to the new ground. How can we use what we've got and the ability to use the assets better? I've spoken to Liam and Liverpool City Council. So, for instance, as you go towards the junction with Leeds Street, if anyone knows down the Strand, there used to be a lane that came up and cut across Leeds Street for you to go one way. If we reverse that, all of a sudden you're back down, you're onto Great Howard Street, and you can get straight to Bramley Moor. Now, if we had a glider, which is what they've got in Belfast, it's 18 metres long, and it's rapid transport because there are 3 sets of doors. Our buses only have one for people getting on and off, but you'd have 3. So you'd have to have a way in which tickets are prepaid, and everyone just gets on, and it goes to somewhere like Bramley Moor. The doors open, they get off, and it does a U-turn, and it just becomes a shuttle service. Now, I think we'd need about, I think it was 5 or 6 of those. Each one's about 120 passengers, and it's a 5-minute journey there, 5-minute back, so 10 minutes. So if you had that, you've got them continue going for those few hours before the game. I think it'd become a commercial success, but also it would then open the doors, the possibilities of us going to other areas. So the airport, and I've had this one forever, because one of my opponents in the election said in 4 years that they were going to deliver a tram service to the airport and then connect up Liverpool South Parkway as well, which honestly, I should have resigned and said, go on then do it, because that's brilliant. If anyone can do it, if anyone thinks that that's possible, that's amazing, isn't it? It's something that we need to improve, and I want to improve it, but we have to be practical about these things. So these gliders could go to the airport as well. So we spoke to the airport a couple of weeks ago. And then the other possibility is Anfield, because the expansion of the ground capacity there is making it more difficult. And I think the great thing about the clubs not acting in isolation anymore, but feeling part of this whole thing, is that when I was speaking to Everton, they're going to hopefully stagger people's exit from the stadium by having the bars open in the ground and all that, and with those views. Yeah. So you'd stay there for a couple, wouldn't you? Well, so it gets people away safely. And the same with Liverpool, they're looking at putting things on, so we've got a fan zone and that, where you might get people staying, and that hopefully allow the congestion to start to dissipate. And so the whole thing for me, you're right, Colin, I'd love to do so much more. If we did the glider, and I think we will, but if we did it, some of that would be segregated road space. And then in the future, just say that we get a benevolent government or we get investments from somewhere else. Once it's segregated, all you have to do then is put the tracks down. And you can turn that from being a glider route into a tram route. So that's a 30-year vision, because it's not going to happen in the next few years, but you have to think about the possibilities of what might happen in the future.
Steve Rotheram, ladies and gents.